Hi, I'm Callie with Funk Around and Find Out Designs, and today I'm going to show you how we transported this bathroom into a new galaxy. Thinking about Alien Envoy as a theme and how we can introduce other pop culture references and alien references into this bathroom, a friend, Marion, suggested we watch the movie The Day the World Stood Still. That title always trips me up. And that we should incorporate in some way the phrase Klaatu Barada Nikto, which the alien told his earthling friends that if anything were to ever happen to him, that she should utter this phrase. We had to include this 50 reference and incorporate this pink tile that's definitely from a different era. There was so much space above the tile to work with. We thought, what about mosaic? That would be beautiful and a way that we can transition that pink into more of the starry galaxy surroundings that we were later going to be installing. We wanted to take extra effort for this not to come across too crafty or too folky. While there's nothing wrong with either of those things, we were looking for a more industrial feel for this bathroom. I have a cross-stitch background, so very used to square charting, and I took this project on. I got out my Photoshop, did my designs, played with the ombre to make sure that the transition between the pink up to more of the galaxy look was more seamless and had a sensical reason, not that it was just randomized. So we bought these beautiful tiles. The pink tiles were actually 1 inch by 1 inch, and the other tiles were 3/4 by 3/4. And one was slightly thinner than the other one. That will definitely cause an issue if it were to be on the floor, but it'll also be difficult for the grout to work around those high spots, and you'll have uneven buildup. So we had to make sure that everything was even, flat, and as industrial as we could make it look. I tried a few different options, tried a hand Dremel that was going to take way too long. Then Amber let me borrow her bandsaw. So I spent only a few hours cutting these down by 1/4 inch and then rounding off 3 of the corners. I wanted to ensure that everything was as perfect as I possibly could make it before I got too far down the line. So I did some dry fits. I printed out the design as we thought it should look to set myself up for success, because to be honest, I have not done a lot of mosaic work in the past. I wanted to use as much of the existing tile mesh as possible. I kept the metallic and the sandstone tiles on their existing mesh, took out the pieces that I knew I would want the pink words to go onto, so it had a better opportunity of staying in line. And when I slapped it up there, it would be easier to make sure all my lines are in the same plane. To attach my pink tiles to the existing mesh, I took Titebond. I also used Popsicle Sticks to make them thicker as well, so that they stayed in line with the other tiles. I put down parchment paper. It'll act as a barrier between that Titebond and whatever surface you are using to glue on. So I had done my calculations. I thought I had done my calculations, started laying everything out, going through all the pinks, realizing, ooh, I am a little bit short. Oops. How short am I? I originally thought I was 300 short. Okay, not great. I'll do some more. Came back, continued working on the pattern, realized, oh, somehow my math was very, very wrong. I ended up having to do maybe about another 200 tiles. So yeah, I spent 1 weekend pretty much just cutting out pink tiles. Now that all the tiles are finally finished and ready to be installed, I prepared the walls with some tile adhesive. So followed the directions on the container, did a thin coat, and then got the trowel and made thicker lines. This being my first time, it was kind of difficult to make sure that everything was evenly spread throughout. I had a tendency of lifting off at the back half or on the front half so that those lines of tile adhesive were not consistent. So Amber was happy to help and show me the correct way to do things. So I will be so much better at my next project. Another thing to consider when applying tile adhesive, not to get it too thick, because then I had to go through and dig out some of that tile adhesive so that there was still space for the grout. This may seem obvious to some. It was not to me because I had not done this kind of work before, but that's okay. I waited the amount of time that the product told me to wait. Then we mixed up the grout and slopped that baby up there. We decided that we would use 2 different colors of grout to make a higher contrast between the words and the background. So we wanted the foreground and the background to have more dynamicism between the two. Fancy word. A black grout around the pink would be a more harsh transition and would show some of those mistakes a little bit more. So that white grout was so much more forgiving, but that being the case, we had to mask off several different areas. It added more time, but I think the finished product looks so much better this way. We first started with adding the white grout around the words, around the base. We let it sit for about 15 to 30 minutes, came back with a sponge, smoothed everything out. Again, tried to get grout out of the places where the darker gray black grout would be, and we removed any kind of excess. Let that dry, came back and did the gray coat. So removed the masking, did some reverse masking to make sure that the white did not have too much gray grout on it, because that would be heartbreaking to have spent all that time and then it just be ruined. It didn't end up being that much of an issue, but it would have been a lot more cleaning if we had not masked that off. A few lessons that a beginner grouter learned. There's a lot of techniques that did not come naturally. I did not truly grasp which way the elbow and the wrist were supposed to work, gravity with the grout, the thickness of the grout, how much work time you have. There's a ton of variables. You have to be having your eyes on everything, making sure everything's still in line. You're looking down the side, making sure that everything is even, or at least kind of flush with the wall, nothing's poking out, because not only that will be annoying to look at, it'll be difficult to clean, and that excess grout can kind of stick around there not looking great. Another thing that I learned was about speed. If it's a pancakey mixture, you're gonna have a lot more time, but if it's really, really stiff, you have not much time whatsoever, so you need to start moving, which I was worried trying to finesse it, get in all the areas. You gotta move, 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 move. If you grout too much surface at once, it can be really exhausting to go back through, and your attention to detail might decrease. So I found that for me, it worked better to work in smaller sections to keep the detail-oriented level up. And I like variety. I don't like spending 2 hours on the same task. Not saying that any of this would take you 2 hours. I'm learning as I'm going. I have an opportunity to get better the second time I grout, that kind of stuff. Everything's cleaned off. It's where we want. It's looking great. Now we have to seal that baby. Mwah. Sealing is important, not only to prevent water moisture, but any kind of chemicals, it can get discolored. Even though it's very high up, we still don't want anything to happen to our little baby, our masterpiece. And it's beautiful. There were times that I loved Mosaic. There were times that I hated Mosaic. And luckily, some of my memory is quite short, so I will definitely do Mosaics again. And as I get better, I'll have more fun with it. Hope this inspires you to try something new that you might not have any experience with, but there's definitely others in your community that can show you the way. Thanks for watching.